of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We have a posted public hearing to begin now for the adoption of MGL Chapter 64 in Section 3 to adopt a 3% tax on retail sale of marijuana products, as well as discussion of the marijuana licensing bylaw that were scheduled back-to-back 6:30 and 6:35. So we'll start with the licensing bylaw as posted. I don't know how many copies we have or how much it's made it to the public to have any like pre-review or not. Do we?
It's been posted on the website for about a week.
All right.
So.
Okay.
We're going to have it for the public hearing on Wednesday night?
Yes, we will have
Okay.
it too.
Yeah.
So we'll
Okay.
be having copies that, if we can encourage people.
Yes. Agreed. Just to start off with the local licensing of marijuana, what we're proposing for the general bylaw on the licensing of marijuana is intended to establish certain protocols that the Board of Selectmen would have to follow during host community agreements. It also includes working with the planning board on certain items that would be involved with the host community agreement. It sets up certain licensing classifications very similar to the state, pretty much incorporating the licensing types that the state has already defined. And it generally sets up a program where the process would initiate with the Board of Selectmen through the host community agreement, and then it'll go through all its steps, whether it's the state, the planning board, every other local board that has their role to play in the process. And when it's all done, it comes back to the Board of Selectmen, where it pretty much says everything's been done. And then we give you the license that actually allows you to take the next step. So if you need a Board of Health permit for something, if you need planning board to approve plans and the construction thereof, those type of items all have to occur before we actually issue the license. But due to the timeline and the efforts, it doesn't happen just straight out with the host community agreement. That's step one, then everything else happens, and then you come back to us to close the loop to say, okay, we started here, we ended here, and then we go through an annual renewal process as part of the bylaw. So I just wanted to give you an overview of what this general bylaw is. There's a lot of details in here that you'd have to read. Forgive me, but I don't think we're going to read the whole thing to you right now. You can always ask for copies of it with Andrew, and we have on Wednesday? Okay, on Wednesday at the Senior Center, we also are doing a public hearing that involves all the articles on the special town meeting. So you have time to review it and bring up more questions if you would like come Wednesday. I don't know if anybody has any further comment on the actual licensing bylaw.
No, that explains it pretty well.
Okay. The next bylaw we're proposing is strictly to incorporate Mass General Law Chapter 64 in Section 3, which allows us to apply a 3% tax on retail sales of marijuana products, assuming a business does come into town to do the same thing, to do just that. It's a formal step we just have to take in order to actually gain the revenues that could come with it. Otherwise, we're not allowed to do it until we bring this before the town and actually get them to pass it. Any question? Yes, Dan?
You said 3%?
3% is the max the state allows a local community to
That's
tax.
all they allow? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they said Leicester was getting 20.
No. It was deceptive. It's the site at Leicester produced, I think it was 20% for the state.
Okay.
I think they have, I might be misrepresenting the total
Yeah.
number, but I think that's the portion that goes to the state.
Okay.
Am I wrong with that? Or
It's 18% to the state and a maximum of 3% of local. So.
okay, so 20% might have been them averaging the total taxes to all.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were going to get enough.
Well, we put it out to get as much as we're legally allowed to in this,
Okay.
so. Yes, Kat?
No, they're also getting a host community agreement too.
Yes, that's a separate revenue source that I do believe is intended to be more the short-term 5 years, so you can do what you need to catch up to the needs of the town to address the presence of such a business in your town.
Is that happening with us?
Yes.
Great.
The only one that's come before us so far is CPC, the cultivation processing.
Yep.
And we did initiate the host community agreement and came to terms with financial, so at the time that they're able to get to the point of actually building a site and producing goods, we'll start to earn a certain level of revenue from that. Yes,
It's
Kat?
only one that we would have in this town, correct?
At the moment, the way that it is set up, the state requires that you allow a minimum of 20% of your package store licenses. In our town, that means right now the minimum is 1. The way we wrote our licensing is 1 retail, and strictly right now, that minimum 20% pertains to retail, not all forms of marijuana licensing that can occur. But we also put in a limit of 3, I believe, cultivation licenses.
Outdoor and 3 indoor.
Okay, so right now we're proposing that 3 indoor, 3 outdoor, and 1 retail are the ones that we're saying would be allowed right now.
Sure.
It is written such that if somebody opened another package store, because we would hit 6 package store licenses at that point, it would open up for another retail marijuana license to be available, assuming that happened. Because it gets back down to a minimum of 20%, and after a point, once you hit fractions, you've got to round up. As far as we know, we don't have any state, courts on this telling us how they interpret that, but that's how we wrote it into our license.
So 1 through 5 alcohol stores is one recreational sale. 6 through 10 is 2. 11 through, and so on. So we've just kept it,
Yeah.
the lowest number tips another store.
So those are the 2 bylaws that the public hearing is about. Does anybody have any further discussion on those? Again, we're going to revisit them in 2 days down at the senior center. And on special town meeting, the 11th, you also have the same time to express any opinions. The more you read, the more you have questions. I had one other item on marijuana bylaw that I just wanted to bring up that is more referencing the zoning bylaw. We've worked with the planning board. I think we've actually done a really good job working with them so that we're kind of on the same page going into special town meeting with what the select board thinks our role is, what their role is. And also, we've had some comments based on input we've received from the general public about some of the clauses they had in it. And I think they've worked real hard and really thought about it, and they made a couple adjustments to give a little bit more freedom based on site specific to waive certain clauses that might apply if it's not truly applicable in the location that somebody's saying, I would like to put it here. So I do believe they worked with us to try to get a good and fair bylaw. One of the things that did come up was very similar but not identical language in the number of licenses. And my personal thought, I am not speaking for the board here, I'll let each other mention that, is I believe that shouldn't be in theirs, that shouldn't be in the zoning bylaw because it's already in the licensing bylaw. And so it's redundant, and 2, it's not identical wording. And so it sets us up for I don't know what, but I don't understand why it's still there. But that's something I personally would probably want to have changed. But that's coming from me as more of a member of the town, and also just the way I understand bylaws are. You don't want a lot of redundancy, because if something changes, you got to do it across the board and go searching all your bylaws to see where it fit. And because it's licensing, it's a Board of Selectmen jurisdiction, not a zoning. So I also add to that, it's one less thing that should be in the zoning bylaw. Just, it's already in a bylaw we're proposing in front of the town the same night. So that's just my opinion. But again, I'm not trying to diminish any of the effort they've done. I think they've done a great job and they've worked really hard. And they've done a lot of work with the general public, a lot of meetings. So this isn't to knock any of the effort or actually the content of the zoning they're proposing. It's more specific to the licensing, and that's just my opinion. Any comments, questions? All right. I guess we can move on to,
Rob said he's not going to be here.
okay. Well then, we should wait to the very end then. I'd like to invite Ann Goby up. She will be presenting a check for the fire department for some of the wonderful things we need.
Bob coming?
Thank you, Mr.
apparently we just got-
Chairman. And yes, Andrew had contacted me when the Senate, when we were getting ready to do a budget work, and mentioned that the fire department needed some extra money. So we were able to get $25,000 into the budget. Don't try to cash this one, but.
Nice.
But at least it'll be a help, and I do want to say a special thanks to Andrew for providing me the information that I needed to be able to make the case I needed before my Senate colleagues, and then before the conference committee as well. So it was very appreciated, so thank you, Andrew, for that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Goes
you
the
very
other way
much,
too
Ann.
for working with us. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Want a picture?
Oh, picture? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay. That
Well,
works.
let me go around here. Let you get in the middle.
Well, it doesn't matter. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Congratulations.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Ann.
And,
Thank you, Senator.
We'll keep working.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right in front of these. Right in front of those. Go stay up.
It'll probably fall on me in about a second.
No.
That just adds to the humor of the evening. So, again, we've, some members of the Senate and our local state congressmen that have helped us on a lot of things and getting funding for our department. So, once again, thank you very much, Ann, for what she's done to help us. All right, I guess I would like to go to the update from the Transfer Station Study Committee and the food waste program. I don't know which one would be quick. Are you guys sticking around for the Transfer Station Study Committee update, or you already did that at your
We
meeting?
already did that, we just stayed for food waste in case you had questions.
Let's just do the food waste first, because I think it'll be pretty quick, and then that way you guys can go on home if you'd like. Mostly, I just was looking for an update. What is it? I saw a little blurb, I think, on Facebook or something, so I was just curious what it is and how it all works.
Yeah, we started on the 20th of November, like a soft opening, because the ad didn't run in the Barry Gazette until the following day.
Okay.
We gave out kitchen scrap buckets for free through a grant, and it's just to cut down on the trash stream. We're
Okay.
trying to start a new program and see how it goes.
Are we just getting it and it's getting shipped somewhere else?
Yeah,
Or?
we partnered with City Compost, and they just swap out the bins at their 20-gallon totes.
Oh, okay.
So people come, take their scrap buckets, dump them into there. We supply them with paper towels, because that can all go in there. On the flyer, there's a list of many acceptable items that can go in there.
Okay.
Scraps. So they can wipe out their buckets, their dishwasher safe, they go home and then just do it every week.
Can you
And then
put
City
that list on
Compost
the
swaps it
website?
out, and they take it and they have a place. We're meeting with them tomorrow, but
Do both
they have a
sides.
place in
Do you have
Orange,
one?
and I think somewhere by Boston that they compost.
Okay.
The compost doesn't come back to
No,
us,
I don't
it's
know.
just
I don't
a way to
check.
cut down on the trash stream.
Nice,
Cut
but
down
thank you.
trash bags.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thanks for taking the initiative to help create that program. It'll be a good one.
Yep, it's new, we just started, so we've only done a half a tote in a week and a half, so see what tomorrow brings.
Do you know where they're locating it on the site? Is it up by the
They have it in
top?
front of the transfer station monitor's shed.
Oh, The higher up one, not the
Yes,
trash?
but I think
Okay.
they're gonna relocate it down by the propane tanks.
Okay.
Just because maybe smell or congestion. with
Yeah.
all the traffic.
All right, great.
So we're just starting out, we're just kind of just testing the waters, and Patrick was willing to assist us in that, and so.
Okay. You guys have any other questions?
No, it's a good idea. I like it.
But I appreciate you taking the time, kind of just explain a little bit to me, and so if I run into someone on the street, I have a better idea of,
Dan earns
It's
his
happening.
points for our grant money, so,
oh, that's even better.
yeah.
So,
it'll be
Well,
good for
it
next-
doubles for compost too, so it's gonna get reused, so it's
Yeah.
not just separating, it's recycling literally and reusing, so it's a double win, so.
Yeah, you probably a third of your trash bags a month.
And it's a lot of weight too, so if we're paying by the ton for trash, the garbage items are actually a lot heavier than some of the trash items, so it's taking some of the heavier parts out of the trash, you're gonna actually have a substantial reduction in weight, which will bring our costs down as well, but we'll
nice.
see. It's a good idea.
Well, thanks for sticking around to just provide a little update on that. It's nice, and the more we can spread the word, the better it'll be, I think.
Thanks.
So, all right. We can,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the Transfer Station Study Committee and get the update you're able to provide. Plenty of seats.
And have you met Mike Blanchard?
Yep.
Okay,
I have
Mike
briefly.
Blanchard, and I think you might know John Chase.
Kinda.
You think? Okay, so what we did was, you asked us 2 months ago to begin to gather together information. We've met 6 times in the last 8 weeks. We went to Leicester, some of us went to Leicester to see the recycling program there, which has been in effect for 30-odd years. We went to Royalston to see the trash recycling operation. Phil Ledger, who is Barry's Board of Health inspector, he's the chairman of that board there, so we went to see that on a Saturday morning. We're going to Gardner tomorrow. I know Andrea and I are going. We're going to see the Gardner operation that's there and what they do. And we're putting results together from all of these different towns. Irene Congdon came. She's head of Mass Central Recycling, has been for years for the DEP. Mark Popham, who's also your inspector here, he's the inspector in many towns for the landfills. He came to our meeting, and part of the situation is, you know, from talking to everyone, first of all, it's very, very hard right now to even break even, never mind make money on recycling with the way it is. And for a town itself to stand alone as a community for trash and recycling, it's very, very difficult to break even without the town having to absorb part of the cost. Success is in the volume. We looked at the 2013 survey that 1,003 people took, and they wanted that transfer station to continue. Remember when it stopped being Waste Management came on to what was the town going to do about it? They wanted the transfer station, they wanted recycling. We also looked at the 2017 annual report to find out about recycling and trash that's happening now, that was compiled by Andrea. Our question to you is, do the selectmen want regionalization? If that were to happen, then we would want to look at a survey to ask if other towns actually want to come to Barry and see if they want to be part of a regional recycling. If it would also, if that were to happen, then we need to vote on it as a town, because right now things can't come into the town of Barry. And we need a new site assignment with the Board of Health, with the DEP, and possibly the MEPA. So of course, this is a very long process if that were to be the case. We would have to look at the abutters and the town input. So as of right now, what we are recommending as a board, and we told the Board of Health, was that we recommend that you keep the status quo for another year. Tell us where you want us to go with this, and then we all together can decide exactly, you know, what should be happening, you know, at that period out. It just happens to be at this moment a really difficult time for recycling in the country because of what China has done and the fact that they have said they're not taking anything that's not 0.5%, which is an impossible task. Plus, China is coming into the southeastern portion of the United States, and what they're doing is setting up their own facilities. So they're bringing waste in, they're cleaning these recyclables, and then they're shipping it off, you know, to their country to be used. So there's a lot going on, and in speaking to the Board of Health, the Board of Health believes that it's a good idea to stay with a third-party outside company that takes on the responsibility of our town, because they have several other towns that they work with, so they can move the recycling and they can move the trash out. And then we're not sacked with any cost, and we don't have any benefits cost for people who might be working at this site. So they believe that we should stay with the status quo. If they had stayed a little bit longer, they would have said that themselves. So that's what we're looking at right at this moment.
Okay.
Gentlemen, do you want to say something, add anything to it?
No, that's pretty much it.
Had you been able to make any progress with looking at that glass processing equipment and the potential grants and things that,
Well,
with DEP?
I'm going to a meeting tomorrow with Andrea, and Irene Condon is there, you know, for that meeting, and all of those other towns that are part of Mass Toss, and a lot of those northern communities. I know, Greg, that I believe you have talked about some of those northern communities. They're all gonna be at that meeting tomorrow, so I know there'll be more information to gather on that process.
Yeah, Irene had some thoughts on that, just as far as what it was costing, the equipment wise, you know, aside from a grant or something like that. I know I had it written down, but the cost of entry-level equipment, you're looking at around $300,000, just to get something up and running for that. And then
Significant.
She did say she had more information and different things to pass along for that as well, but yeah.
Okay.
What exactly were they talking about supplying for $300,000? What type of
Crusher.
equipment? A crusher? That's it?
Turns the glass into aggregate.
No, I understand, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So-
no,
so that's
exactly.
ju-
Yeah.
So that's just,
And that was-
that's just for the glass. Did you get a price for, obviously, secondhand baler would be a way to start for a bundle or a baler? You guys looking to cost for balers for the plastics and paper?
No.
Okay, no. Did you get an estimate of how many tons of plastic we go through down at our transfer station in a year?
Yeah, we have some information.
What would that be? I'd like to get the breakdown of what we do for.
You know what we'll do, we'll send you
Paper
that
and-
survey that was compiled by Andrea for 2017, and she, you know, within a few weeks, she'll have 2018, so you can certainly look at those two, because one of our questions is, what does it look like now versus what did it look like with waste management? Like, are we doing more trash, you know, more recycling and such, so we can make a comparison with that, so that's something that we're looking to do right at this moment.
So, yeah, I was looking for the, numbers in the recycling, scrap metal, pay-as-you-throw, what kind of money are they taking in pay-as-you-throw items, because those are all winners. Those are all charged significantly more than they cost to throw away, so get an idea of the revenue stream we have. We're talking about revenue stream is what we're really
Correct.
looking for this. And to get our revenue stream, we need to know what's being done in pay-as-you-throw, including, tires, couches,
Mattresses,
construction
the whole
debris,
thing.
mattresses,
Right.
everything.
No, she does.
And a volume of that. An idea on what we have for tonnage on plastic and in paper. Paper's valuable. Plastic you can break even on pretty easily. The glass and the metal's glass, loser. And that's a
Loser,
biggie.
total, right.
And that's the thing. Such a weight of glass makes it a loser. And that's why the recycling almost is a non-issue. And as we found out before we asked for the committee, is that we're not gonna make money off recycling. We're gonna this makes money off of the trash stream. So knowing what our trash stream is gonna be, how many stickers are sold, how many bags have they put out this year?
Yeah, all of that is under that 2017 survey that we can certainly pass on to you,
That's-
that we received, and also we'll do the 2018.
Right, so before we talk about recommending and not recommending, what we were looking for is bottom line numbers. Can we make some money out of this?
Yeah, I think it's
And-
744 tons.
And if
right
that
now
means-
that we do with the trash.
And if that means
Yeah.
we move the recycling off somewhere else that has a facility and find out what the expense is to incur that, and they may take everything but glass, and we get paid a little, and then we just gotta pay for the glass, and it's gonna be a slight negative. And we wanna offset that against the trash stream revenue, the pay-as-you-throw items, the tires. The scrap metal's just a moneymaker. I mean, you get paid by the ton for the scrap metal. All these things should count in the plus column. And we should be able to figure out pretty easily how many stickers are sold, how many bags are sold, and have an idea of what our revenues are there, as well as the tonnage of trash we throw away. Now, with their idea of taking garbage and refuse out, that will eventually start dropping some tonnage, because garbage and food literally is the heavier items in the trash. And that's gonna give us an idea of what the actual revenue stream will be that we're dealing with. And from there, we can decide what it's gonna cost. We already know the overhead to put an employee on the payroll. And as we said, as you brought up, to expand, there's not a lot we have to do, but we do have to go through the process of rewriting our bylaw to say we'll take other towns' trash, which is no worse than we're doing. Believe me, it's a lot easier than these marijuana bylaws. To amend our trash bylaw is a very innocuous thing for a town meeting. So we can push that through in June if we wanted to say we can take other towns' trash.
Right.
But we need to, if we're going to do something different, we need to do a new site approval and things that,
DEP.
those things we need to know specifically, the challenges to do that. Other towns have shown interest in it,
And what parts are included in the revision of the site assignment?
Correct.
I'm
What
not
it takes for
certain
that
what's
process.
requiring it,
Yeah.
because if it's just total tonnage, my understanding is we're barely getting 20% of what we got.
Correct.
So it's gotta be something else that I'm just unfamiliar with.
and the site assignment for expanding and taking more trash wouldn't have to change. The site assignment needs to change if we're gonna start taking recycling and handling it ourselves, which I don't think is gonna be our best option. I think the best option is gonna be to see what it will cost us to farm that out somewhere else. So more interested in finding out some of those specifics. I thought we had that understanding better before we set you guys off, but I guess not. But really trying to find the revenues it's gonna generate and then estimating the costs to run the facility as it is. And if that should become the decision, that's what we're looking at. Do we want
Yeah.
to take it over and run it? From there, we need to decide in the future. Obviously, we know right now recycling's not worth it. Where do we want to go for recycling? I know Groton takes other towns' recycling in, and they get paid for it, for the parts that are valuable. But the glass is always a loser. Always a loser. But I think this town, we've demonstrated, looking at the books, that the trash bags and the stickers, that they generate a significant enough revenue that we could easily staff a full-time employee down there and make it profitable and still cut the price on stickers and make it profitable. That's what it sure looked like. But we didn't dig too deep into it. That's why we had the committee to look at that. I mean, the benefit employee, I think we said for DPW was gonna run us about 57,000, was it, or 62,000?
Just north of 60.
Just over 60,000 for benefit employee full-time down there. So
And
if-
then you're adding 20% onto their benefits that go with it.
Right, well, that was,
That included that?
Yes.
yeah, it was
That-
around 40 plus 20%.
Plus the 20%.
We had a solid number there, so.
Okay.
And if we only want to, if we keep the same 2 days we're open, that gives that employee 3 more days to either haul recycling or haul trash or do something else. It seems like that end would be pretty simple. But things like paper should be valuable. It may be worth getting a used bundler for the paper, which we should be able to pick up for $15,000 to $20,000. And I know, once again, what I found what Groton does, Groton has a company that leaves a tractor trailer there for them. And
Yeah.
they exclusively take the trailer, so
Yeah.
they provide the trail, they provide the transportation, they just buy the paper. So we bundle it at our leisure, we pile it, when it's full, they take it and they pay us for it. And that maximizes your value in the paper by doing that and selling it off. So there's a couple small things we could do, but that may need a site change if we're gonna start doing that. If we're gonna bundle paper, we need a building to bundle it in.
Right.
And that's where we'd have to get into site work. So it wouldn't be a now thing. The now thing is to see
Correct.
what kind of revenue we're gonna generate in quite
Sufficiently
simply.
enough to hire an employee if that's what you're thinking.
If that's bringing in $120,000 in total revenues and it's gonna cost us 60 for a town employee, then we have 60,000 to play with. We can drop the sticker price and get more people involved, which should bring our contributions of trash up, which should bring our revenues up to offset the sticker cost. We're not looking to make a ton off it, we're looking to take back control of it, get another employee on the books and start to make some money off it, something incrementally.
Mhm.
But I think in the long run, it would benefit
So
us.
you also have to take into account when you're figuring that is the environmental impact. If somebody throws something in there and it spills, and it's a major spill, right now SWS holds the liability of the cleanup. The town takes that liability, those cleanups can cost into the hundreds of thousands of dollars quickly.
Mhm.
It's matters of minutes. So that's also something we talked about in our committee.
Right.
Whether we thought that was,
That is maybe something you might be able to help with on that is looking into the cost of the liability insurance and the protections that most of those companies would have just in case.
The
And what
reality
does
of-
that protection actually provide?
Reality
Does
of
it clean it
occurrence.
up for you? Or does it just get you through so you can then
Right.
outsource it again because there's no chance we're digging out of that hole?
And we'll
I
check
don't know
with those
enough
other
about it, so
towns.
that's why I'm asking.
We'll check with those other towns
see
who
what-
do that and find out what they have to pay for liability.
And see what kind of occurrence rate those things really happen. I mean, how often do
Mine
those things
might be
really
able to
happen?
answer some of that too.
You know, if we have a place for them to drop paint off like we normally do, people pull their paints and those type of things out and put them in that shed. And I think just keeping that shed available is important. You know, when that shed was open all the time, people would drop paint cans off there always, and we had the, I don't know who, the tech or someone came and took it and bundled the paint and used it, whatever, yeah. But when you pull that
Clean
shed
Harbors
away,
came
people
in
wanna get rid of
twice a
stuff,
year.
they're gonna hide it and bury it in their trash, so I mean,
Correct.
that's
That's
a
exactly what they're gonna do.
smart thing to keep open and minimize that, risk. But I'd be surprised if it's a too often occurrence nowadays. So I would assume the insurance isn't too bad for it, because it's probably not something that happens that often, especially if you have something like the paint shed and other steps and measures taken to give people another option, you know. And something I talked about before, you know, when the stickers are high and your pay as you throw is high, this is why the DPW picks up couches and chairs and TVs in the woods, and trash bags in the woods. That side of that goes away too, and this becomes more reasonable, and people have a place to go that's more affordable. We're not gonna be paying our town employees, then paying by the ton to throw that trash away that we find in the woods, which they pick up trash all the time. I still haven't tried to hammer Jason down for a number of hours that they put towards it, but they probably spend a couple hours a week, which adds up, gathering trash and then paying to throw it away because it's discarded in the woods. Because $100 sticker's kinda high for a year trash. I don't know of any towns around that have a sticker that high for a year.
Do you got any other items specific you wanted to?
No, it's generally, they're not, they said they've got them all, so we'll get them later. I was just, all these pay-as-you-throw items and bags and the revenue stream is what I'm looking for. I agree, and I thought we agreed up front that the recycling is not gonna be profitable in this.
Right.
We didn't expect it to be.
Right,
Look-
now the bags for Royalston, they're $2.50 a bag,
Mhm.
that people use for that.
Right, and we're charging 3.
No, $2
Two,
a bag.
two.
We're charging two, and
But-
$1.25
That's
for
a
the
figure.
30.
And how much is the sticker
Yeah.
in Royalston?
Yeah,
And
it's
that-
between 30 and 50.
And that's a
Yeah.
big difference, 30 and 50 to
Yeah.
100, and that's what stops people, that's what stops me. I don't wanna pay $100 for a sticker. If you're gonna charge me $4 a bag, then I'm gonna be more careful of what I recycle, and more careful of my trash. And I'm gonna pay my share as I go, but forking out $100 up front just to be able to drive in the place, that's the part that I think is excessive, and that's the part that I have
Well, if you look at these
a
other
problem
towns,
with.
the ones that you see the $30, $40, which I think, everybody jumps on, you're looking at the 100, a lot of those towns, they're not accepting trash, you're paying $30, $40 to go put your recyclables there. I mean, anybody else that's doing trash, you got Brookfield, $85. You got the town of Warren, they're $100. Well, I'm sorry, that's non-resident, $80, so, you're $20 more. But then you're getting the trash and the recycling, so you see like.
That's
Peterson.
2 high towns, and I'm sure if I go back and I can find you 20 low towns.
Sure. well,
So
well,
I know, you-
number of
same-
houses, I mean,
same-
right, you're dealing with,
Yeah,
I looked
right.
at that too, you're dealing with 5,000 people in town. You look at these other towns with
Just
10,000
showing you
people.
what it is.
The sticker's probably, in the corner, it's going down because they got more trash. Like, it's volume.
And that's where,
volume.
as you had mentioned, if we're lucky and we can get into more regional
Right.
Well, then that's
or
all
just
that's-
open it to
that's-
regional
And
use,
that's-
then we
and if
might
we can
start
get
getting the
regional with a
numbers.
simple
No,
bylaw
you're not gonna
change
do it
without
with
the
one
site
pass.
change,
Very.
that's the
Right.
first way to
Not
start
gonna
bringing more
get the
trash
number
in
you want.
and bringing it up.
Okay.
Which is, that's what we suspected on
Yeah.
that, regional help, and we don't need site reassignment for that, we just need a simple bylaw change.
Well,
But
I
if
don't
you
know,
wanna-
that's what I'm saying, somebody mentioned there was, so I don't know if it's, the site assignment also identifies who you serve. So that's why I need to understand why they're saying a site assignment, even if we just open it up to other people. I gotta figure out, there may be something written in it, and that's all it takes,
Right.
and you gotta have it revised if that's what it
And
is.
if that's the case, it's simple as still
What
than
it was is, remember 30 years ago, it was sludge, and that you couldn't bring sludge into the community, and people really fought against that. So now if you're looking at what you intend to do in the future, you have to just look at all those aspects. So.
Well, no, I meant more the site assignment, not the bylaw.
Okay.
I don't know what would require a change of the site assignment if we just say, if someone from Oakham wants to drop the trash and we do the same services on site as we currently do, then why does that change the site assignment? And like I said, I don't know, maybe the site assignment identifies you can serve the town of Barry. with their, and I don't know.
'Cause
So
it
that's
says
why I
it's
wanna.
it only comes out of Berry, the way the site assignment is set up.
Right.
Right.
So that's probably
Only
why
the
it needs to
town of
be,
Berry.
that's probably why it
Right.
needs to be visited to include the
That's-
town,
that's
but,
something.
but the tougher thing will be trying to, you know, reorganize the site, because then you need your properties and your setbacks and everything else, of what can go where and the cross-contamination. So if we try to do bundling of paper and things, that's when the site assignment's gonna be a tougher issue. I think adding a town to the site assignment should not be a difficult thing, because we shouldn't change what we're doing. But probably, yes, still required if it's named as our town's trash in that agreement.
So
Yeah,
this.
one of the things to note too, that SWS in running it, it cost them between $15,000 and $20,000, the Board of Health was just telling us that, to just bring the electricity into the site, so they could run their two compactors. You know, those are about 30,000, correct? So those are about 30,000, so those are just some things to look at, you know,
Yeah,
with
additional-
what needs to be down the road. And also those large containers, those large containers are newer containers, they're not the ones that were the waste management containers that we were left with. So, just down the road, if it turned out we did our own, those newer containers would be going back with SWS, and that we would be then, taking what we have or buying newer ones ourselves, because they were in such, ill repair, you know, such, so. Okay, just some thoughts, and so we'll get back to you with those concrete numbers, and, as I say, at this moment, we just, you know, we would just recommend, that's what our recommendation is, and that's what the Board of Health agreed with. So, all right,
Okay.
we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
All right?
Well, I appreciate it. And so I guess from this, we're in agreement right now. We'll just continue for another year under the contract, so we're
Not at
not.
all.
Huh?
Not at all. Didn't get any answers I wanted.
Well, we need to make a decision by the end of the month.
Right.
That's why I'm saying that, according to the way the
Yeah.
contract's written. So are you gonna get the answers you want in a month?
I was comfortable with the answers we had before last year, that we should have taken it over.
Then why did you set up a committee to do it if you were gonna do it yourself?
Because I was the sole voice that wanted to take it over, and they wanted to be cautious and get the committee to look into it more.
Right, and that's what
So,
we've been working
so
on.
I understand that. I understand that.
Invested many hours to do that.
And I understand that, and I do appreciate that, don't get me wrong.
And by December 31st, we cannot have that answer provided 100%.
Mhm.
So, well,
Thank
we
you.
got another meeting. We
Okay.
can revisit if we have to, but thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you taking the time to come to our meeting to give us an update too. All right. Just open up the marijuana bylaw discussion one more time. Anybody on that? No? Okay. Any public comment? No?
None of the answers. I was
Well,
looking for.
I'm looking at the agenda and I usually see you guys here for marijuana and there's no more marijuana agenda items, so I was like, figured it must be a public comment. So that's why I was looking at you. I thought you were here for one of the marijuana bylaw things.
Well, I mean, but it was mostly just because I was trying to figure out what your licensing numbers were gonna be. So
Oh.
if it's 1, 3, and 3,
Yeah. And that's assuming somebody wants to do it here. Nobody's come before us yet with any type of cultivation other than the one, so it's not like we got people racing up to our front door saying, I'd like to start the process. We'll see how it goes. They might be waiting to see how the planning
Yeah.
board zoning bylaws come out, but
I'm sure we'll get some interest once people see what the requirements are gonna be. They probably wanna know what to get into first. But I would be surprised after all the hoopla about the money in Leicester and the sales in Leicester, are people gonna be very interested in it? I would bet.
Yeah.
2.2 million when you're only 2 stores, though. It's a lot harder when
I was
there's.
gonna say it's.
Yeah, and quite frankly, do we want that traffic through the center of our town? I mean,
I think it's such an abstract view of what's going on because it is so limited and not properly spread out through the state yet. You really don't have a clue. You don't know the potential income, you don't really know the potential impact of the community. It's an aberration of what you're looking at. You're not gonna know it until there's more out there and you actually get to see how it lays out. And also,
opening days.
Leicester did it because they wanted to, but they did not have to allow them to park down the street, truck them over, and allow lines to run down the sidewalk either. They said if they don't fit on your property, they go home, they come back later. They could have said that. So Lester's administration made a decision to work with them, apparently, whether they were willing to pay for police details to help with it, but apparently the not enough police details because people were still peeing in yards. So if you have enough police, I don't think people are going to just turn around and hope nobody's looking because there's a guy 10 feet away. So it depends on how you want to manage the situation. The town could have stepped up and said, no, you need 5 more police officers after the first complaint. And just put somebody in everybody's front yard until point was made. If you can't last, get out of line and go to wherever you can go to the bathroom and come back. But, or required porta potty. I don't know. It's how it was managed. And I do believe some of it was underestimated numbers of people made it harder for them to guess at what they thought they needed.
I was
think
surprised.
On the cultivation side, they're learning in Munson that it's not as clean cut and easy there either. Like they're recently had to have major complaints from guys golfing on the golf course that's across the way because of the odor that's coming across while they're trying to golf. So that's an indoor cultivation site. So I don't think any of it is as clean cut and easy as anybody was hoping it was going to be. So.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of those aspects, and again, it also comes down to how did you write your host community agreement, and how do you have certain bylaws in place that may or may not apply, because that could have totally affected what they didn't realize they allowed something to happen in Munson, because they didn't say you need to control it so you can't smell it across the street or whatever the rule was. But you can write it all you want, but then after that you got to deal with whatever shows up and how you enforce it.
And that's the thing. I think there's
Which is how you wrote the rules.
Like bylaws in Munson, it's just how it can be enforced and how, like whether or not you shut that down as soon as you like there's a single complaint, or do you wait until there's 5 complaints, or is there like what is the?
And how do you validate the complaint?
They also had to allow for that in their bylaws to have the enforcement capability. So if they didn't, once again, depending what they already wrote, they may go back to a meeting and you know, reform their bylaws so they can take action. But we don't know what they wrote.
Right, exactly. So that's just when we're looking at the bylaws for this town is what are the enforcement requirements, what are the enforcement plans for beyond just writing, we don't want these things to happen, okay, well what happens when
Once it becomes a zoning bylaw, I believe our building commissioner becomes the zoning enforcement official. So as the complaints come in to the town administrator's office, I'm sure he'll delegate it to the right people to take the steps to act on it, investigate it, because again, not every complaint is legitimate, but so we got to take the first steps to validate it and then enforce it. That's my guess. We're not there though, so I don't want to guess too much because I might be putting my foot in my mouth or something. Anything further on that? Claire, you
I
had
just
something
wanted to
public?
bring up something that I just noticed. I don't know how many other people have noticed. Driving through town tonight, there's no crash on the common. It has been there for how many years? Why isn't it there now?
Because when the committee, some of the committee members left, we donated it to a church. Because we didn't have members to really decorate the common, there's only 2 of us left.
And the Lions Club didn't.
They only want to do certain projects. And that, one of them, they didn't want to have anything to do with decorating, lighting, nothing. So.
This
Because
was
I know
really,
some of the, there was one resident in town that had done some work and created that crutch.
Our creche?
That's what I had heard.
Well, yes, we paid that resident to build that creche for
Did
us.
you?
Yeah.
so the answer is it was privately owned and then privately donated after a private committee had disbanded. So.
Which is a shame. It should have,
I'm sorry, Claire.
Just a second.
What
Dean.
is it that's missing?
the creche. They
Right.
always had the manger.
The nativity
okay.
scene, the
Yeah.
manger.
Okay.
They always had it on the common. It's been there for,
But
ever
you
since
do,
I can remember.
but you have one at the St. Joseph's Church and one at the Congregational Church.
Yeah,
So-
so this one was on the common as you drove up, it was near where the tree is, it's lit. And you saw it it's been there ever since I can remember.
It was the committee's choice to give it away if they wanted to.
What I would suggest is, because of the way Christmas and Berry came together this year, it really came together much more like a grassroots, where a lot of individuals came together and said, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that, I'd like to do that. And people helped fill in the gaps to keep communication well. I mean, the Lions Club tried to do a good idea of like, well, who is coming and what are they doing? So at least they're aware of who's a part of it, as well as I believe a couple of the previous committee members tried to stay involved and do what they could. If it's something that you want, though, it's going to come down to members of town stepping up and wanting to do it and offering to do it and be.
It's a shame that the committee didn't come before the town or before the selectmen and ask them.
It wasn't something that they were even aware
Yeah.
of people wanted, because again, there was no committee. We lost the committee last year.
You're not,
Ask the town what?
to purchase it. I'm sure they would have got donations if it was made public, but it
And how
wasn't.
long would they be able to leave the crush on the common? Some people, Hubbardston, they didn't allow it anymore because it wasn't politically correct. So you're gonna eventually get to that point.
But Hubbardston isn't there.
We
Claire,
understand that.
what it comes down to, Claire, though, is this is private. It's not a town thing. It never was a town thing.
It's a volunteer
It was,
committee.
we helped support it with some
It
funds.
was a town thing, going back 30 years.
What I'm,
Wouldn't you agree, Charlie?
was the committee
It was a town.
a governmental town appointed committee?
Yeah, it was.
It
When?
was?
It was the town.
Yeah.
Prior to that committee? Because
Yeah.
they never
30
came before me
years
since
ago
I've
they
been here
had
to
it.
That
put
was
them in.
before me then, because this is just a volunteer committee.
Yeah,
They
well,
own a
this is
private
back
account.
30 years
They
ago
don't-
we had it on the common.
They don't manage town funds. They haven't managed town funds. They make requests for town funds, just
Well, you
like
look
some
back
other.
At the history.
I'm just explaining how it's been since I've been here, because that's all I can
But
say.
that isn't very many years.
But that is the reality of what it is. It was a private organization at the time I got here, and it was not appointed by the Board of Selectmen. They actually found their own members to help fill in gaps, and they maintained their own membership at the time.
The selectmen we've had over the years have always, it's been on the common.
And that's fine. And I think a lot of that came also with the tradition of what the committee was doing as they carried it on.
And what happened to that manger that was originally there?
Well, I can't answer that, Claire.
That was
That,
before me, I have no idea.
It was even there when I was a kid.
That
You
was
never
long
been here.
before
So-
me, so.
all I'm suggesting is if you want one on there, you're gonna have to work it up from the grassroots back up, not from us back down. People in town are gonna wanna do it and get involved next year and talk to whichever organization, whether it's the Lions Club that steps up, or we get more people to step up and be part of a committee. Or maybe you bring it to us and we try to create a town-appointed Christmas and Berry committee or similar, but I actually thought it did pretty good this year with people just stepping up saying, I wanted to do it. And I generally feel like when you have the government step in, it makes it worse on something like this. It's,
There's only two committee
That's-
members left, it's Sharon and I, and that's it. We can only do so much, and the support of the Lions Club were just certain things that they wanted to do. So, and even if they didn't, Sharon and I, there's no way we could have put that pressure up ourselves. We need volunteers, people need to offer to help.
I noticed most of the decorating on the common itself appeared to
Well,
have
it
been
used
done
to
by
be done-
Dennis,
it was-
Sharon, and Sandy.
It used to be done by the departments in the town.
Well, no, there were people that helped the departments, the fire department, et cetera, did help with town hall, but I'm talking about the gazebo and the out on the common decorations I saw being done by 3 individuals that were doing it volunteering as private citizens.
But I'm telling you that it wasn't done that way years ago.
So why did
The
they?
DPW and Parks and Rec, and they used to do all the decorating on the common. It wasn't as elaborate as it is today.
So
But they
why
did
did
do some.
then why did they stop?
I have no idea.
Probably budget.
There was
budget-
always,
the
there's
budget's
always
been
been lights
cut
on
and
the
cut and cut and
common,
cut,
even
so.
before the committee.
Oh, no, I know.
But the committee wanted more.
Best answer I got right now, Claire, is that's something that we can continue to see what we can do about. But I definitely want it to not seem like there was, I understand your disappointment maybe that it wasn't here this year, but I also believe that a lot of people put a lot of good effort in, and we actually had a really nice event this year.
I'm not saying they didn't.
Oh, I know, Claire, I know.
So don't.
But it's been a,
twist my words.
no, what I'm trying to say, I brought that up not necessarily because of what you said so much as how it can be we're talking about one specific thing, we weren't talking about the whole event. And so, because it's so close to it, I just felt like it was, we're not saying we just had an event and now it's all we got to say is something bad. So I just
It's not
chose the
saying anything
moment.
bad, it's just asking what happened.
I
And I'm
understand.
sure there's a lot of people in town that feel the same way I do.
I believe you're right. I truly do.
you
And I
may-
appreciate you bringing
may
it up.
hear- You may hear from these people.
Well, I hope I do, because then it's doing exactly what I want, which is getting their involvement. Otherwise, I mean, don't get me wrong, if I don't hear from them, then it's not really being involved, so we understand. I mean, that's why I really appreciate when you come in and speak your mind, because I am hearing from you. I know what you're thinking. Anybody else have a topic they would like to bring up? All right, we have one other item on the agenda right now, and it's change of manager for the Ice House Pub liquor license. It's is that complete or beer wine? I forget. It's all alcoholic.
It's an all alcoholic.
Okay. Do we know what initiated the change of manager?
The original manager that was listed on their application is no longer a partner in it, so a new person's stepping up as the manager listed.
Okay.
I believe they have a target opening date of February 1st, so they need to get all this in order before then.
All right. Do you have any thoughts or concerns or anything about this license, or good to go?
It's they did it along with their renewal. The next meeting, you guys will have the bulk renewals.
Okay.
I did get back every license prior to the cutoff date that I was expecting. There were two that I knew weren't coming in, so.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the change in management for the Ice House Pub to Lauren Borelli.
I will second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
So you give that over the original.
All right. Is there any further comment from the public on any topic? Otherwise, I believe we have some executive session items to go.
Question, was that Owen Borelli?
Lauren.
Lauren.
Lauren, sorry.
L-A-U-R-E-N.
Okay, so female.
Yeah.
Met the minutes.
Oh, right.
Claire's got a question.
Yes, Claire.
The New Braintree, the meeting, is that on Thursday night this week,
Yes, it is.
6:30
Yes.
at the school?
Yes. No, not the school.
Town hall.
New Braintree Town Hall.
20 Memorial.
20 Memorial Drive. Yeah, we just signed the front page, right? There's no other signatures in the back on this, Andrew?
No, just those signatures, yeah.
do have mini meeting minutes.
We do.
What I would suggest, if you guys are okay with it, is we take the copies they gave us and go home, review them. If you got any comments, we can approve them all at the next meeting. Because there's a lot of them there, and I don't want to just run right through
Sure,
it.
that's fine.
I did ask Kathy to be here since
A lot of these are old
2011,
meetings.
2012.
They have nothing to do with us, so we
Executive
could-
session, she would be the one to corroborate what took place at those meetings, so.
This is, the bulk of these are old executive sessions for being released. Then for our minutes, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which are all pretty current. One I'll abstain from
But I
because I
just
wasn't here.
saw it.
I know, I'm saying,
So I'd rather-
but we could get these off the plate since Kathy's here for them.
I'm more than willing if you'd like to do that,
Do
Kathy.
that
If you'd
make
like to
sense?
come up, have you had a chance to look at any of them, or
Well,
are you interested in looking at any?
I would have read them years gone by. So is that what the question you're asking me?
See, what I'm asking is I didn't know, one, I didn't know where these originated. Were these already drafted and just held
These
to
were-
be released?
Yes, these were pre-drafted, stuck in a folder.
It's just time to
And-
release.
Were the minutes
Correct.
approved? Now we're just approving to release them?
No, they were not. And that's
Okay.
why I discussed this with legal counsel. He said to see if anybody from the board could affirm that these were the correct minutes. That way you guys could approve the minutes and release.
I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong one, the original.
I mean, they're pretty much just one.
It'll add up.
Anyway.
Correct.
We'll get it. Apparently this is the original.
Oh.
We'll just give Andrew both copies and then he'll know what the original is.
I have another original.
Anyway, so.
Then at least get those off, then we can, the other ones are also pretty straightforward and recent, so I glanced at them and didn't see anything that stood out, but you can certainly read them and get better input for them next time.
I did have one thing to throw out there for a selectmen's report. We've had several discussions regarding, and Sam's aware of this, he's brought it to our attention a few times about potential solar on potential town lands. Can't really get into it, it wasn't really an agenda item, so I just want to bring it up more to discuss as an agenda item at the next meeting.
Okay.
Looking at reviewing what would be a Chapter 25 procurement process, which is more of a request for qualifications type thing. And it allows you to have a little bit more liberty in identifying the general type of scope you want. You have to have certain things knocked down, so it's still some type of an apples to apples. But you can include more than solar in it. You can put solar, you could put new, like infiltration and insulation. You can kind of create anything that's, and then ask, say, vendors to bid on coming in and doing an audit. That could then lead to a written scope with design. That can then lead to what you would call an amendment to that, which is actually, we'll now have you do this work for us and go forward. And by doing that, you don't have to know all the fine details of every scope you want to do. You're actually hiring them to help you. It's very similar to a design build, but it's specific to energy, and the state created a specific chapter for procurement for that.
And by using a broader stroke as an energy audit, it's a way to get the solar estimate in there. along
It's
with
a
other
way to
things
give us
under that.
the information to say, not just solar and where and what size, but what contracting method would we want to do? Is it a power purchase agreement? Is it buy it yourself? Is it a lease? Is it a various forms like that? And by bringing in someone like that, once you get through the request for qualifications process, you can actually sit down. I mean, we need to have a general understanding so we can put that in the RFQ how we want it presented. But once you get to that, you can then have it in the scope that they're gonna present these different types of options, so we can actually see what might be considered to our best benefit and which approach we would wanna take after that. I'm sure there's a little bit more detail that Andrew could get in on the process and the limitations of that process. But I think it's something worth us looking at. Because it also then kind of becomes a, depending on the type of investment, it would have to fit into the capital plan. So we would have to look at, okay, how much do we want to do total? How much would that maybe roll into a bond or a ban or whatever? And how does that affect the capital plan? So there's plenty to it, money-wise, investment-wise, and return on investment. But I do think there are certain things we can benefit from. We just gotta make sure we have the right approach. And so I wanted to bring it up now so we can get more into discussions maybe in a couple weeks to just see how we want to start that. Because it takes time, and then once you get into it, and then that takes time, we could be 6 months before we're even at the point of saying, please do this type of work for us.
And you could be a year.
Which means
year
now you're
before you
halfway
see
into
return.
the summer, so your building time and other things might be limited. So it was a good time to let's think about it, see what we can do, and try to get somebody in that can maybe assist us with that.
And I've already talked to Woodward and Kern about getting me a draft scope of services related to that, because we have them as an on-call
Okay.
engineer, and they have some experience in that, so.
Worcester did it, so they also have one that was already written, so you can steal theirs and use it as a reference as well. I can see if I can just get a copy and get it to you, otherwise,
Yeah, they're just waiting for me. I need the additional information on the actual site, so.
Gotcha. A lot of it comes down to that. We gotta do our own legwork and say, this is what we own, this is the sites. It can be buildings, it can be lots, it can be a bunch of things, but you gotta list them all in there for them to consider it. You can't do the RFQ and then later say, oh, I wanna add these other 3 buildings to your audit, because now you didn't necessarily put it in the proper bidding process. So, that's my understanding anyway. A lot of times you gotta do some legwork, get electric billing account numbers and meter numbers and all that, and you just wanna have all your building data there, and then you save a little of the effort that you'd be asking them to do anyway. That's my experience. So I didn't know if you guys are okay with that, if that's something we would like to put on the agenda for the next meeting after the next normal Board of Selectmen meeting, not something like a squeeze-it-in type meeting, I don't think, because if we could, we could, but I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference in our timeline.
No, it's worth discussing. We need to find ways to raise revenues, and certainly investing is investing in the stock market, probably not a smart thing for us, but investing in something tangible that we can calculate the return on is smart.
And our public safety building's a big electric user, because
Oh, it
it's
is.
primarily heated and cooled by electricity, so it's a heavy draw during the season. So that's where maybe solar might be a nice little thing, where it could actually just quickly pay for itself, because you're not having to use credits elsewhere. You're just saying, I'm not buying from National Grid. So the operating budget gets cut and it goes into a capital budget to pay off the bond. To a degree, obviously, it won't cover everything, but it's the concept.
I think also for future discussions, I'd like us to have a formal discussion about trying to do something this spring in the Common.
Or an event.
An event, and my thought for an event would be something that we would want to reach out to local greenhouses, and maybe when people do, and I know Andrew's family does flowers in greenhouses, have an event where people can come by their starter plants for gardens, flower gardens, vegetable gardens, and maybe get someone that's willing to come out and give people some tips on, location of gardens, sun or shade, proximity of plants, soil and fertilizer and contents, and just generally help people. And we could have a couple of seminars, events, and bring a lot of people in selling things, and maybe get it with the opening of farmers market, and try to make a big weekend up there in the Common sometime in the spring, and try to draw people into town. And that would, if we did it and we could be selling starter plants, and I don't know if we have to talk and see if local people want to do it, or otherwise we would reach out for starter plants, but it'd be a great opportunity for our local farms that have greenhouses to get a bunch of starter plants going and kick their business off in the spring by having a large group of people come through town, and if it was advertised well enough, it could be a big draw for the town and bring people into the restaurants and through the town and everything else.
I like the idea. I think that would be another good agenda item, and maybe getting the word out now that people could come in and express their opinion on it in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Help add to it.
As a funny point, you could even sell marijuana plants.
I don't know if everybody would consider that humorous. I just don't know if that's the case.
Interesting. The legality of that would be interesting. If somebody had a,
No, they would really get upset if you tried to sell one and you
You're selling-
didn't have a license to sell it from the location.
oh, no, you'd have to have a license, but that's something we should think about too, though, when we, because that could come up on us. What if somebody wants to sell solder plants, because people are allowed to own, what, 7 plants?
Mm.
6 plants?
But don't they do that at the farmer's market anyways?
Not marijuana plants.
No.
No, that's what he's
But that's what I'm saying,
speaking
if
of.
somebody
If
If somebody
specifically,
came in and wanted to do that.
but I could certainly
where
see
does it
potential
fit that gray
if someone had a
line?
license to sell, maybe not from our town, but maybe we have an exception at farmer's market, where someone can sell seedlings for someone who wants to grow their own. They have to get them from somewhere. And I don't know how I don't even know how that's set up right now, that people can buy starter plants. If somebody wants to grow their own, how do they start? I have no clue. Not my thing. But it's,
Interesting, because you're right, I don't know how they do it
not
if
saying
they
I want
can
us to
now.
pursue that, but I'm saying we
Yeah,
should
that's
probably,
correct.
we should probably be proactive and get ahead of that. Now that he brought that up, we should probably look into that before it comes to farmer's market, because that very well may show up there sometime. And we need to
Well,
make
our
sure we can deal
bylaw
with it.
covers it right now, because they need to get a license from us to do it. So at least locally, we can kick them out if they don't have a license from our board. Generically, marijuana retail.
The whole
or
The
even-
whole farmer's market thing is a whole different
So-
thing. No one's getting a license to sell anything there, it's the farmer's market.
It's agriculturally regulated, I think, right?
And it
The-
seems to be a crop. I'm just saying, we might want to look into it.
I mean, to be able to sell it without some type of business licensing, I think it only works if they fall under the agricultural.
The state has basically
State, right.
treated this as an industrial process rather
Yeah,
than
they
an agricultural
specifically
process.
drew the line, saying
Yeah.
it's not one or the other.
Okay.
All right, that's all our items. We'll get back to the meeting minutes. Did you see anything, or is it
You would- right,
move forward
was
with it?
Move forward with it, right.
Okay. Do we have a motion to do that? Thank you very much, Kathy, for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
I'll make a motion to approve the following executive session minutes for release. December 15th, 2010, January 24th, 2011, August 25th, 2011, September 6th, 2011, September 12th, 2011, October 3rd, 2011, November 7, 2011, November 16, 2011, November 21, 2011, November 30, 2011, December 5, 2011, February 21, 2012, and May 21, 2012.
Second.
Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye. Approve meeting minutes. I make a motion to approve the meeting, no. I make a motion to table the meeting minutes for October 15th through November 19th. I just want a little time to just take a look at it.
Second. So tabled, right?
Perfect. Table it the next one. Thank you, though, for putting them together. All right, anybody want to make the motions on the executive session items? I don't trust I'll read it right.
I'll make the motion to go into executive session under, whatever, here we go, I just had it here. Chapter 38, Section 21A, Exemption 7, to discuss two issues relating to, I don't know how we should word this, Andrew, for both of them, or?
Well, one of them is related to a MOU between the town and the Commonwealth, that's exemption 7. The other one is under exemption 3, which would be
Strategy of litigation.
Strategy of litigation, Commonwealth versus Langelier.
Okay.
Okay, so these are actually separate.
Two separate, actually they're separate
All right, so we
exemptions.
just do one and then.
So we're gonna have to go in and
Step
out.
out of it and then step back into another one, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So.
Executive.
Put transitional services for police. Okay.
Second the motion.
Call for vote?
Aye.
O'Sullivan,
Aye.
yes?
Matterburn, yes.
And then we have to make a motion to, I think I haven't done this in a long time.
We off camera? Have to wait for camera to be on.